hope you're all having an enjoyable and informative session so far. Thank you to all my other colleagues on the panel as well. Kind introduction. I would just like to give a quick background on the Palantir Group. Palantir Group has been around for a number of years in various guises. We've also been related to the Cord Group over a number of years, developing effectively zones in a box, so trade zones globally, and working with the legislation around those. The Palantir Group effectively moved these forward and developed a new range of sustainable trade zones. And I think trade zones, it's important really to look at that from what we're going to discuss here. They come in many flavors, but effectively think of them as a big wrapper that can provide an envelope environment for common trading principles. It gives a common framework. Sustainability, as we'll also see, I think has many flavors. And to me, sustainability is really more about the long-term viability of projects, services, and the community that will both participate in the construction, delivery, and the operations of those, and then the consumers of those services. So when we come to looking at, obviously, energy has a vast scope in terms of the current climate, and particularly for Chișinău in terms of the local geopolitical climate and everything that we know is going on. Energy sustainability can provide huge benefits to the local economy, to the national economy, and to the overall welfare of the people. So what we're looking at here is a long-term viability strategy to become energy independent, sustainable in that process, but also recognizing things like the 2030 sustainable goals, the agenda for change, and also the net zero ambitions that are being looked at globally. So let's just have a look at some of the slides and see if I can share the screen. Okay, so looking at effectively architecting prosperity together. As I said, the 2030 agenda provides a number of sustainable development goals, which really, once you start to look at a renewable energy environment, starts to tackle quite a lot of those. Everything from clean energy, net zero, to education, prosperity, jobs. It covers quite a range once we look at that in its totality. I think that's the slideshow. Okay, so what would the aim of a sustainable or an energy hub in Chișinău be? The idea really is about aggregating sustainable energy solutions, providing a common hub, a common framework, and a zone in which public-private partnerships can come together to accelerate the development, the introduction, the research and development, and most of all, the execution and delivery of these projects and services. Clearly, by creating a dedicated hub, that allows us to focus specifically around that innovation side. There's a huge amount of innovation globally in renewable energy, everything from wind to plastic to hydrogen to the obviously electric vehicles. Chișinău has a number of benefits in terms of being able to provide a very easy, accessible city for testing these out. So it provides a good test ground. It's a good size location. It has a number of the key aspects that are needed to look at these energy solutions. It has a geopolitical climate that requires that and can help accelerate that. And then above all, now it will have and is starting to have a more investable climate. So the way we look at the hubs really is not just about the technologies and services, it's how that integrates into society and what that can provide as a long-term viable and sustainable solution. And obviously energy then becomes a key aspect of any society. So an energy hub has multiple aspects, and really what we want to do is look at fostering a circular and sustainable framework for that within Chișinău. That can look from everything from your waste disposal, how that is then processed, how the byproducts are extracted from that, what the resulting production of those energy solutions might be it hydrogen, be it syngas, be it heat, or whatever they are, and how they fit within the local industrial climate. Because to start with, we have a kind of an aggregating model where we would look at the waste generated, how that can be recycled and renewed, and how that then comes back into the local local environment, the local community. And that would come through your industrialization process down potentially to the consumer level over time. That will obviously include things like logistics, and that might be the transportation of energy, but it might be also the transportation of those other byproducts as we look at that delivery system to create that circular economy. So I can look at everything from your municipal waste collections to your medical waste collections to your industrial waste, how that becomes processed, how it's stored, and how that then starts to move through that value chain into the downstream consumption of the resultant services. So what benefits really does Chișinău have? I think everybody is very much aware of the need at the moment to become more energy sustainable, to become more energy neutral in terms of the, in terms of the local region. And Chișinău actually is very well located, both from an east-west and a north-south perspective, to really become a hub, a regional hub for green and clean and sustainable energy development. That, as part of the process, as we said, we would look to tackle some of those 2030 goals to bring it in line really with the whole move towards a more integrated and circular economy. Obviously, as part of an innovation process, looking at the research and development, we're looking at a range of areas, both from the engineering and the mechanical side of it, to infrastructure, to really new ways of delivering those services, to everything to payment methods from a business and a consumer offering. That in itself provides a huge opportunity to create new jobs, to upskill existing local talents, something that we understand and know is very much needed in both Moldova, but especially Chișinău, to stop the brain drain. But at the same time, by providing a dedicated hub and something that is focused on enabling more sustainable and easier development of these products and services, it would provide a destination and an attraction for global talent to come in and provide the resources to support that upskilling. As part of that process, Chișinău has a number of very good universities, but partnering on an international basis with further higher education and research institutions would provide a huge benefit both to the city and the country as a whole, and as I said, provide a more sustainable and long-term framework for the upskilling of local talent and providing a way to retain some more of that talent in country that could provide a blueprint really for other industries and other services going forward. And really, it's not just about the resultant energy. Really, this is about an integrated technologies and services model. Both the collection from tip to toe, as they say, from collection of the waste and waste energy or raw materials for creating that energy, all the way through the delivery and the consumption of those products and services. So we're looking at a 360-degree integrated approach to how these will work. And they're becoming very much more popular now, generally around the world. And we see that through the Middle East and other emerging markets and economies that are really trying to focus their attention and aggregate these services from top to bottom within a contained environment, something that becomes a common framework for both public and private partnerships and interaction around delivery of these services. Okay, so as I said, we're looking at the integration and aggregation of these services globally. From our work, and this is a 2019 slide, there are a number of common problems with doing business, and no more so than can be seen with trying to develop new industries, new technologies, new avenues, but also given the current climate within the region. A dedicated hub starts to look at how we can solve these problems by providing an aggregation of the opportunities, the partners and the delivery into a seamless, unified approach. It provides a common framework which enables transparency and trust being very key to attracting both investors and partners to deliver these long-term services. It helps to reduce their risk of coming in and partnering both with the city and the country as a whole to deliver, but also the risk of these projects getting delivered swiftly and on time. I pick my words carefully there because there is an urgent need to become energy independent, and therefore there needs to be both a long-term planning and framework for this that enables short-term research and development projects that can get that learning moving quickly, because typically most of these things, whilst they can be a paper exercise to put the original framework in place, the learning that you get from actually doing is far greater. So those help us accelerate the time to delivery by reducing things like policy uncertainty, skills, trade conflicts, geopolitical unrest, protectionism within the marketplace, and other things. And that could include regional tensions or other things that may or may not be happening. Ultimately, by creating a common platform that can evolve and develop based on a circular feedback, this is a looped approach, an innovation approach. So, understanding and defining what's needed, what the problems are, developing solutions, delivering those, and taking the feedback from that creates a circular loop that enables us to accelerate the innovation and the delivery of second and third generation projects within the system. This enables us to then obviously go out and scope and bring in partners and other projects which will enable Chișinău to become a centre of excellence for green, sustainable, renewable energy. As I said, we provide a long-term framework and create a destination for Chișinău as a green hub, but it will also incentivise and engage local citizens, local businesses and government really to support new pathways in sustainable and renewable energy. It's as a hub, and we can see this from our work and what's happening now. It's not just about a hub; it's a hub and spoke approach, and this really starts to identify, then the relationships between Chișinău and say Balti or other regional towns and villages, but also its geopolitical partners on both the east, the west, and the north of the country. By providing a hub and spoke approach and a common framework, it enables us to have a common trading platform really for all of those partners to come together and to streamline and shortcut some of those processes that may otherwise get held up in changing political landscapes or whatever that might be. So this is really providing a common framework for succession planning within an uncertain political environment. And part of that really is in the research and planning. And Lee will talk to you a little bit more in a moment about quite a lot of the work that's already been done around these areas and looking at some of the projects. But it will also look at things like enabling common regulations and concessions, something I know that's happening currently with new legislation around green energy for pre-purchase agreements, equipment, etc., etc. It would provide a common understanding between the sales and marketing for effectively hub partners, projects and businesses coming in, but also external investors that are looking to support these projects, and particularly within the region. As I said, the hub really, although it can be a hub and spoke approach, and we can look at both the development and the build out of renewable energy plants, but that will come with infrastructure construction. That will come with tie-ins to local businesses, universities, and other government organisations as it goes. So the construction and the development and the master planning of that becomes very important when we start to look at the build-out. So, for example, if we're looking at plastic and waste to recycle that into, say, hydrogen for the buses or the vehicles, obviously the construction and the master planning taking into account the overall city as a hub in itself becomes extremely important for long-term planning. And then obviously we have the hub operations and management. Typically we see these as a kind of a hub authority separate from the government to give that credibility and the viability going forward. It enables a depoliticised commercial environment for everybody to operate in, but it also enables a much more seamless public-private partnership within that space. And then obviously there's a range of ancillary services. As you're developing new energy, new legislation, there'll be new tariffs, new buy-in rates, carbon credits, and the other ancillary markets that go into supporting this long term. So these are all extremely important, and having a common framework for those is essential really for their success. So what do we get from that? Well, ultimately, we're looking at a 360-degree approach to sustainable energy. And sustainable energy, as it's moving forward now, will encompass everything from the data. The data side of this is going to be extremely important to really understand the transparency, the efficacy, and the potential of these new technologies as they move forward across that ecosystem, and as they get rolled out into projects and services. And therefore, those connected services effectively help us foster that clean, green energy utilisation across the board. That sustainable energy hub then starts to enable further technologies and services, further innovation and incubation into these new technologies. They provide new pathways to recycling and renewables, and obviously then it starts to enable other local services such as infrastructure development.
Nick, can you hear me? Nick?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, because of time pressure.
Yeah, no problem. I've got one slide left to do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so what does an energy campus look like? These aren't new. These hubs, there's one being developed currently in the UK between Rolls-Royce and Qatar. There's 1,000 jobs across 2 campuses that will be generated and proposed. They're looking at climate technology. A further 10,000 roles will be created in the wider business community from that, and as new businesses get launched. They're looking at, obviously, with the hubs and the research and development and the growth in this market, to develop new unicorn companies. And I think we can take that as an inverted commas unicorn, but the potential to develop new businesses and new services that have a huge scaling opportunity, and therefore the economic and other impacts that can bring to Chișinău over the next 10, 20 years is extremely powerful. And obviously, as you start to develop 1 or 2 in that incubation hub, that will attract and develop further spin-offs from that. We see that a lot within the university sectors. So this is really about developing that IP-based, that innovation-based, that incubation of these new products and services. And obviously that will foster long-term capability for startups that might be based in the UK to come and partner with Chișinău as a city to develop these products and services and build out a more long-term sustainable future. And on that note, I will hand over to Lee, and he can talk a little bit more about some of the energy projects that are viable for Chișinău at the moment.